All right, guys, well, hear me out before you click completely off of this video. At least understand and listen to why you might want to consider retiring overseas, at least part-time, maybe not full-time. I understand completely it's not right for everyone, but it's not what you think either. So let's discuss the 4 reasons why it's not what you think, and it may not just make retirement easier, it may actually make your retirement a lot better. All right, so let's have a frank discussion today here, guys. This is not something that I'm discussing. It's something I've been considering doing now for about 10 years. It's something that was this is how far in advance I plan a lot of sort of things. Kind of goes from idea all the way, here we are 10 years later, 5 years setting down a really solid plan to execute to, and I've been executing that over the past 5 years here. This is not political, has absolutely zero to do with that. Somebody that's commenting that down in the comment section is just an idiot that wants to bring politics into everything when this literally has zero to do with it. I wouldn't care who was in office right now. This is exactly what I would do. This is a 10+ year plan at this stage that I'm just now executing to. Now, to be transparent with you guys, I am not retiring anywhere overseas full time. I simply believe in taking advantage of the best of the world. And unfortunately, it's not 1980s anymore. It's not 1970s anymore. We're essentially, the US was the best at everything. And everything was there. A lot of the world is caught up in a lot of different areas, and there's still some things that the US does the best, but there's some other things that absolutely other countries do the best. And even if not, I just might be my personal preference. What I want out of my retirement years doesn't exist fully here in the US. And a lot of you guys may be in that situation too, to where, hey, some things check the boxes for me. Other boxes I want checked aren't necessarily checked here, or maybe they're better some other place. And so for me, especially as the world is kind of globalized, this has been key to, and obviously traveling the globe and all those sorts of things, it's all been key to kind of opening my eyes to, well, wait a second, I was always told A, but the reality is the exact opposite. It's complete 180. It's not true at all. Now, it may have been true at some point in time. I'm not saying anybody was intentionally misleading or anything else of that nature. Maybe they were. I don't know. I'm not here to judge that either. But I know that the reality that I have experienced personally is vastly different. And these right here are kind of the top 4 things that you got to think about. Now, there's a lot more to think about. This is such a complex, nuanced topic there. That's why I'm actually documenting my complete journey down there in the blacklist. If you want to follow along with that journey, obviously get a complete system to retire on as little as, $300,000 and do that in a year. That's the pinned comment down there for those that want to follow that and have that system and have all that laid out for them. Basically, you don't have to do anything, and I'll basically hand walk you through that along with our experts and everybody else. So these are the 4 that absolutely are top of mind, top reasons why I'm retiring part of the time overseas. But you can absolutely retire full-time overseas as well. So the first one is better quality healthcare. Hey, I got it, guys. We all want to believe that the US has great healthcare systems, but I think we're all starting to see, and I think the vast majority of folks that I know, even folks who have long held that belief that it's the best here in the US, starting to see, oh, okay, I kind of see what you're saying there, Luke. I kind of see things aren't nearly as great as they seem. We actually rank, depending upon the ranking you look at, somewhere in the mid to late 30s. So basically 35, 36, 37th in the world. And unfortunately, you are seeing third world countries starting to beat us in certain categories. And even when you look at a place like Thailand, for example, it ranks lower than the US, except you got to look a little bit deeper in the data, because what you find is in a city like Bangkok, the rating and in all the large cities there are significantly better than the US healthcare system is overall, or any city in the US. But they also have to include those rural areas where they really don't have any healthcare at all, or it's so poor, it's definitely something you don't want. So as long as you're avoiding areas like that and you're staying in some of the larger areas, there are countries and cities all across the world that are significantly better. But almost as importantly is not only are you getting better healthcare, and if you've ever experienced in some of those countries before, even in Europe, the healthcare is so much better overall that not only is that the case, the cost is crazy. You don't even need insurance in some of these countries because it's cheaper than your freaking copay would be in the US for the entire thing. It is insanity how it works. And you can see that right there. The data is out there in regards to how much healthcare costs in the US. Our healthcare is obscenely expensive by a mile. The medicines are obscenely expensive by a mile. Every single category within healthcare, the US is just falling and falling and falling and falling. And I don't see any way that those costs magically get better. Lots of people have tried. They've tried all kinds of programs. We've completely turned our healthcare upside down. None of it has worked. We continue to be the most expensive and the quality of the care continues to go down. So for me, especially as I get older, obviously when I was younger, I didn't care. I never go to the doctor. I barely ever go to the doctor now, just simply for checkups and some other things of that nature. That's it. But at some point in time, I'm going to need it. And I want to be well taken care of. I want to have world-class healthcare. And more importantly, I want to be able to go anywhere in the world to get that healthcare, as opposed to a lot of folks who are just kind of locked into the US system there and are kind of afraid to go other places because they're just not familiar with it. Once you get certain with it and start using it, I think you quickly start to realize, oh, wow, if this happens, I really want that taken care of in this particular country, whatever the case is. So healthcare, absolutely one of the big ones there that it's really hard to dispute that it's not better in a lot of places around the world. So number 2 is healthier lifestyle. All right, so this one right here is one that is big for me, and absolutely, especially as I've gotten older, I just enjoy walking places. I enjoy a healthier lifestyle. And unfortunately, the US is a car culture. Most cities, not all, most cities are set up for you to have a car and you got to drive everywhere. I mean, even just to go to the store, there is no corner market in the vast majority of neighborhoods out there. You live in the suburbs or a suburb-like area. That's just kind of the reality of life. Of course, now if you live in like New York City or, downtown Miami, Boston, obviously DC in certain areas, some of those places obviously have a much more walkable type environment there, but the vast majority of the US is set up to drive. And I want that healthier lifestyle, not just from a walkable perspective. That's one giant piece of it. The secondary piece of it is healthier lifestyles in general being something that is common and something that the vast majority of people want. Here in the US, we want cheap foods. We're complaining about the prices of foods, but yet we really don't complain about the fact that most of our foods are poison. You can just simply look at the ingredients list. Go grab a box of Cheerios. Next time, if you happen to be out of the country, grab a box of Cheerios, look at the ingredient list, and look at the ingredient list in the US here. And you can do this with a lot of different products. Take your pick. One is full of crap. One, those aren't even allowed to be used in the food source in the vast majority of other countries, even in third world countries. Down in South America, I was just down there earlier this year, and I was amazed at how much better the quality food was, even though, they had some really good empanadas and some other things of that nature. They're kind of fried, not really good for you, but yet I felt better eating that than I did trying to eat a, clean piece of grilled chicken here in the US whenever I got back stateside. One was really upsetting to my stomach. The other one, the empanadas, I thought were going to be bad. I felt wonderful. It's just simply the difference in the quality of food. And unfortunately, our food source here is trash. And unfortunately, lifestyle-wise, whether we like it or not, I'm not trying to be ugly or anything of that nature, but when you get off a plane in a foreign country, there's a stark difference in terms of how people look, obviously, people being overweight, how well they take care of themselves, a lot of other things of that nature. You really notice it whenever you get on a plane, off a plane, or you get off a plane and, pick your foreign country. They're totally different. And then you get on a plane, you come back to the statesides, and then the opposite kind of slaps you in the face as well. Kind of like, oh man, because a lot of countries, they're just healthier. Obviously, a big complaint that I hear from a lot of my family members that have traveled overseas is, oh man, you order food, but there's just not a lot of food on the plate. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's probably because that's exactly what you actually need. You don't need all that extra food. We end up throwing it away. I know I end up throwing a lot of it away, but it just seems like they're set up in general for just a much healthier way of life. And that makes it easier to be healthy when the entire, everything from how the city is designed to, the food sources, to, the culture in terms of exercise, getting out and walking, how people treat meals and things of that nature. When all those sort of things are kind of culturally already there and they're already set up for you, it is much easier to be healthy than it is when everything is set up the exact opposite way. It is much easier to not be healthy. I notice it every single time I come back here to the stateside that, all of a sudden I'm sitting more. I'm not nearly as active, and I'm an active individual. I am very active, but it just seems like it is so much easier other places. So that right there is reason number 2 why I'm looking to do that. Number 3 is less crap. Okay, now this one does not apply across the board. This is country to country. But generally speaking, crime is lower the vast majority of places around the world compared to the US, at least the places I've been looking at. Crime rate is much lower. People also tend to be friendlier, although I'm not saying they're not friendly here in the US. Absolutely. Plenty of friendly people here, but it's not universally. They're not as friendly as they are in some places overseas. Not every place, obviously. And then you also think of things like political drama and division that we have here. Doesn't really exist overseas. It's one of the nicest things about going there. Now, I'm not saying they don't have their own political discourse. Obviously, you guys over in the UK, I don't know what the heck's going on there. I can't even keep up with it. It's so crazy there. Same thing, some of my Canadian friends, some of those sort of things kind of stand out there. But what I find is when you sit down at a table, even in an English speaking country, you don't hear political talk going on all the time. That's every time I go out to dinner, I can overhear conversations, and the vast majority of them political. I can check out at the line at the grocery store and somebody has an opinion, or your checker, the person checking you out has an opinion on it, or just whatever the case is. It's just amazing how many times in a week I get somebody tries to draw me into a political discussion of some sort, one side or the other, and I have no interest in any of it. I don't care. I hate politics, but yet I go overseas and you don't hear those conversations taking place, and nobody's trying to engage me in those conversations as well. Now, sure, you can say, well, Luke, that's because you're American, and they can clearly tell that whenever you're there. Might very well be true, but I can overhear everybody else talking, and I don't hear it being talked about the same exact way that we talk about it here. Now, I'm not saying all those things are perfect or that they don't go on or anything else like there. It just seems like that they are a lot less. And I travel all over the US too. It just seems like it happens a lot less, a lot of other places overseas than it happens here. And so that, for me, I think we would all love less political discourse. I think we would all love less crime. I think we would all love a lot less of all the noise that's out there. And guess what? The only time I've ever experienced that is whenever I actually leave and I go some other place, unfortunately. And number 4, cheaper cost of living. Now, again, if you want to live in, the middle of Paris, it's not going to be a cheaper cost of living, but you can live in other places in Europe a lot cheaper. And obviously, if you're willing to go to Asia, South America, they have first world, top of the line, in some cases, better amenities, better cities, better dining, better everything for a fraction of the price you would pay in a New York City, for example, or even in the suburbs of Texas, for example. So you can go all these different extremes, and it's actually still cheaper than to do that. Obviously, you got in the cost of healthcare. Obviously, if there's not car culture, using public transportation when it's set up properly is a heck of a lot cheaper than driving your car around, paying for insurance and gas and all the other things like that. Generally speaking, it is a much cheaper cost of living, and it's something to consider, especially if you're, your retirement is kind of, you don't have the big nest egg that you thought you were going to have. Or maybe just, expenses continue to climb, inflation continues to climb, whatever the case is, to a point to where your retirement's kind of uncertain, or it's definitely, I might have to work a little bit, might need to work part-time to make this thing work. In a lot of cases, you don't have those concerns overseas because the cost of living is so much cheaper. Again, depending upon where you pick, of course. But there are a lot of great options, a lot of incredible cities that offer a much cheaper cost of living. So although I know my audience out there, kind of looks at overseas and kind of goes, especially mainly US based, I'm not so sure about that. Well, guys, I'm telling you guys right now, it's not necessarily what you think, and it's not necessarily what we've been told that entire time. So it's something to at least consider, depending upon your situation there. And these right here are the kind of the big 4 reasons why I not only considered it, but I'm going to do that part-time as well. And remember, if you want a complete blueprint, even if you want to retire right here in the States or, Canada, wherever you're at, and you want a step-by-step process to go from 0 to retired on as little as $300,000 and in under a year, make sure you check out the pinned comment for the blacklist, see if a membership there is right for you. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.